Welcome to Awkward MMA. I am your new host. If you've been watching Awkward Fight Talk, I'm Z Hut. I'm new to this, so this is my first time with Jared Braun. And let's get going. We don't have seasons anymore, just because we want to make sure we're making the most quality content now. And with what's going on, we don't really have as much, to work with because not as many people are in the gym training. Sad reality, but it's the way it is. But we got to work with what we got. But I'm gonna give it to Jared. So how about you tell me what got you in MMA, and you got your start in wrestling, right?
Yeah, so I started wrestling back in seventh grade. I believe I was 13. Just so happened to be like walking down the hall, and the captain and the head coach were talking, and they needed a 65 pounder because they didn't have one, and I was so small. Like growing up, like I think my freshman year of high school, I weighed like 100 pounds total. So like at that time, I think I was walking like 60 pounds, and they just grabbed me and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing after school?" And I was like, nothing. Instantly like crapping myself because they're huge, and like one of them actually like had muscles for a middle schooler. So I was like, nothing. I came, got my butt whooped, and I don't know why, but like kept going back and just kind of fell in love with it, honestly. My introduction to MMA actually kind of happened through wrestling as well. In high school, I was lucky enough to run into a coach called Izzy Martinez. He does the wrestling for guys like John Jones and Holly Holm out in New Mexico at Jackson's, and he got into MMA like I want to say my third or fourth year with him. So I started out just wrestling with him. He was just a youth coach. Um, I was like 13. He was like 26 or 27, so about my age now, so relatively young. And then like I guess he went down to New Mexico with Clay Guida, and then ran into John and like those guys. And obviously he's a mastermind in wrestling, so they took to him pretty quickly. So I was kind of lucky enough to, like, as I was wrestling, he would bring in MMA guys for me to wrestle with, so we could get him better. Like I want to say I wrestled with Yair when he was like 21 or 22, when he was really young, before I even knew who he was, like before he was big. Like he'd bring in guys like that and just have me wrestle with them. So like I would watch and I'd be like, dude, this is pretty cool. Like I could see myself getting into it. And then my freshman year at college, during the preseason, we actually had a guy on the team who was like a junior at the time. His name was Dimitri Boyer, and he had an MMA fight. And I was like, dude, like, let's go watch. So we brought the whole wrestling team, and it's out in Iowa. So like, people love this stuff, dude. In Iowa, like, combat sports and wrestling, like, you might as well be a football player, like in Texas. Like they worship the ground you walk on. It's if you've never gone and seen, or like never had the opportunity to wrestle in Iowa, like I would actually like really recommend, like, just go to the high school state tournament and see what it's like. Because I wrestled in Illinois, and that's like one of the top in the country, but like their love in Iowa for the wrestling is unsurpassed. So we went to his fight, and I watched it, and I was like, that was super sick. Like he subbed this guy in the first round, and then afterwards we were talking, and we were like messing around bullshitting. And he was like, I bet you won't get in there like after season. I was like, all right, like just talking. Like I was like, give me a fight and I will. And then after season rolled around, he's like, hey, you got 1 month to like get ready. Like you got to fight. Like I got you a fight. So that's how it started. I went in there, and then believe it or not, I had my second fight the next weekend. My first fight was at 125, and then after that happened, I think it was like 2 days later, he had a title fight for a different promotion the following weekend. And he was like, hey, there's a guy who's like 3-1 at 135. So like obviously I just made 25, so I was probably sitting at 140 so I could make it. And he was like, nobody wants to fight him, so I already told the promoter you're in. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Like, you didn't even ask me at all. Like, but I was obviously not going to say no because it was someone I looked up to. So I was like, all right, let's go do this. And after I had those fights back to back, it was like, dude, I was hooked. There was no going back. Like going out there to wrestle. Like I've been on big stages. Like I wrestled at NCAA's. Like I wrestled at the national tournament in high school. Made the finals one year. So like I've wrestled on big stages before, but like nothing in my life has ever get my heart pumping and like felt more alive or like excited to do something than like fighting. So once I did my first couple, there was there was no going back. I knew I was after I was done with college, I was I already know I'm all in.
It was your true love from
Yeah.
the get go.
Yeah. Honestly, I wouldn't call it my true love. I would say wrestling is always probably my true love, and I'll always have a special place for it in my heart. But I feel like I had wrestled for so long, and MMA is getting so lucrative that I'm dude, this would be stupid not to do it. On top of that, my degree in college was exercise science, so it's I understand the way the body moves and nutrition on my own. I don't need to go get a strength coach. I don't need to go get a nutritionist. I can do it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then just the years of grinding and doing things on empty stomachs with no food and wrestling, cutting weight and stuff like that. I feel it's honestly almost cultivated me or got me ready for MMA. So I feel MMA is my purpose, but wrestling will always be
that
my
foundation.
true love. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something you just can never get rid of. Because I follow you on Instagram and I see that you're at wrestling tournaments and stuff like that, for high schools and colleges and everything.
Sure.
Out of that percentage, how much would you say is MMA, and then how much would you say is wrestling?
As far as my posts on Instagram?
Not your posts, but how much time do you really spend in the wrestling realm still?
Oh, I would probably say 50-50. Just because I feel when guys go into MMA, they kind of fall in love with different facets of it, that weren't their specialty when they came in. But I feel no matter how good I get at striking or jiu-jitsu, wrestling will always be when things get hot and heavy my go-to. So I feel I need to always keep that sharp and up to date with what's going on. But then MMA is also something that's very new, so it's in that honeymoon stage where I'm kind of able to watch it and be oh, this is awesome, this is brand new, this is fresh. But I feel I understand wrestling at such a deep level that I always want to watch it and kind of learn more and always kind of improve that.
So it's kind of like Mackenzie Dern in jiu-jitsu. No matter how many times she goes to the octagon, she's always going to be known as that black belt in Arizona that always, tapped people out like no other.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the same style that I want to bring to the cage. It's a Khabib-esque style. I'm not trying to go in there and take.
Have you experimented with sambo or anything like that too?
No, but I did try out judo a little bit when I was in high school. My parents would bring me to different spots and jiu-jitsu a little bit. So I had experimented with them before, but not really in depth. I kind of latched on to wrestling right away, and I was this is it. I knew right away from a young age that I was wrestling is it for me.
Oh yeah.
Especially because I was so small, so I was there's this weight classes for this, so I was thank God, because I tried football my freshman year, weighing 100 pounds, so I got absolutely destroyed. So I was wrestling, there's a weight class 103, I'm in. You know what I'm saying? So.
Well, what do you fight at MMA?
I fight it when obviously when I'm gonna be in the higher level professionals, 125. But I also fight at 35 because it's easier to get fights at 35. There's just more horses in that stable than there is at 25. You know what I'm saying? And I probably walk at 140 if I'm eating relatively clean, and then 145 if I'm kind of eating what I want. So it's not a terrible cut to 35, and it's a pretty solid cut to 25.
Yeah, and then, not to bring up a sensitive subject, but I can see why you would stay at 135, because everyone talks about how 125 is in danger.
Yes.
I mean, I still see that there's a light over the horizon with DF and Joseph Benavidez. After I saw that, I felt it's so unfortunate that he missed weight, and it kind of put the whole thing on hold. But I feel
sure.
He's that uncrowned champion now. But speaking of 125, you've been hanging out with Triple C and Valentine. They're both 125 champions.
Yeah.
So if you're new to this, it must be going a great way for you if you're already in their circle. How's that?
Yeah, the reason why I feel I can do well with it is because I feel Izzy prepared me for it well, because I was after my senior year of college, when I graduated, I did my internship, actually my capstone senior internship with Izzy as an assistant coach, because it had to be something relatively in your field. So I went and exercise science wrestling coach. So I was with him, and then after that, after I graduated, he took me in. I was living I was living with him for a while at his place, and then eventually things got kind of, we needed a space from each other, so he put me up in the attic of his gym. So I literally lived in the attic of the gym, and the reason why I really honestly wanted to is because I remember hearing a story that when Jose Aldo started, he used to live in the gym. So I was like, I want to do the same shit. Like if this guy is a legend, like I want to take the same like path that a legend is taking, because obviously it must do something for you. And honestly, it did the world for me, because when I was like by myself and it was wake up every day, and he had this certain schedule for me, and I had to get this done, and I'm not allowed to go do anything unless I get 10 5-minute rounds on the bag, and unless I'm helping out 2 to 3 times a day with these wrestling coach practices. So I would say being around with Izzy, he took me around a lot of great people. Like we would go to Rufus Sport back and forth, so I was around Anthony Pettis, Sergio Pettis. Like he would force me to spar with like different guys there, and then he would force like the Pettis brothers to come sit and watch, or he would have all the kids that I coached come and watch. So like he forced me to always like be under a spotlight and have to deal with like heavy pressure. So like I feel like now that I'm around them, I'm like, they're just any other people to me, because like,
And that's really good too. Like
yeah.
you're sparring with like the Pettis brothers, or like at least working with them if they're just
Yeah.
on the sidelines, because as a wrestler you're going up against like people who are natural born strikers and stuff.
Yes.
So that clash of styles is just really intense, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it was honestly kind of brutal. It was really brutal in the beginning, because I wasn't necessarily learning any striking technique. So I had my wrestling. So when I was going, I would basically just go in there and just spar with absolutely no learning of any technique, and just going in there and just wrestling and figure things out. So especially when I would go with professionals like Sergio, who for a 125er, and now he's fighting at 35, has probably the longest reach I felt like I've ever like had. Like this dude is just pinpointing me from different directions and stuff, and I'm like, let me just get close. Like, God, please let me grab him. So I feel like that has obviously prepared me well, as well. So I feel like it's no different to me than
And you got to really throw
anything else.
yourself in with those high level guys to prepare
Yeah.
yourself and have that challenge, and just kind of like humble yourself so you don't get like a big head or anything like that. I mean, that's like that, like just to, take those challenges is just an amazing thing. It's like in jiu-jitsu, like when you're just like starting off as a white belt or something, and you're like saying, I want to go with the blue belts, and then no, I want to go with the purple belts or the brown belts, like knowing you're just outclassed, but this experience is going to be good for you because you're probably going to learn something that like the other white belts may not know, or something like that. I mean, you're probably not going to be the only one doing it, but the more you do it, it's just going to benefit your career in like the long run.
Yeah. There's a line Jay-Z says in one of his songs I used to listen to a lot, and he says, "You can't be scared to fail and search for perfection." So like, I feel like when you go with like those top guys, and even though you lose, you still have seen it. You've seen what they have, so like this is the extent that it gets to. So if I can just, every time I see that portion of them again, like if I improve on it next time, there's no way that these average guys who are walking around now can touch me. Because if I can defend it from the champ, then no way. Like, and on top of that, I know where I need to get to and what I need to pass in order to become the champ myself. So that's the way I see it. And dude, it's in the gym. Who cares?
Yeah,
It's ego. At that point, it's straight ego. If you lose in the gym and you are like upset about it, it's straight ego, because who's seen it, and does it count?
It's practice. Like, it's practice for like when
talking about practice.
people are watching,
We're talking about practice.
But it's just, I think like that's a good thing that people need, like just in general, is, having like your ego tested and everything like that. And just, knowing, no matter how, and this is like the one thing that my grandfather always like taught, my dad, and then my dad handed it down to me. No matter how good you are at boxing, fighting, or any sort of anything, like anything non-fighting, like, because I'm currently like doing trade school right now, and like I'll go in with people who have like years of welding experience, who worked on the pipelines and stuff, and like instead of like looking at those guys like with any sort of resentment, look at them as someone you could learn something as, like, and like if you're like with wrestling, I'm sure like when you look at Triple C or someone like that, you want to learn from that guy. You don't want to hold any like jealousy or resentment or anything like that. But actually, like, what would you say is the, you know, probably one of the funniest failure stories that you're grateful for, in a sense?
Okay. This one's gonna be kind of wild, but like I'm cool with it getting kind of wild. The first college that I was at, I was only there for a year because when I first like got out of high school, I wasn't really prepared for the real world at all, and I kind of had like a misconception of the way things worked. So I ended up actually basically failing out of the first year, like about the first college that I was at. So, but I was still trying to get back in. So I was going to a community college nearby, and my buddies from that college invited me over. So I came over, and it's probably like 8 o'clock at this point. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, but it's called 99 Bananas. It's like it's a certain
No,
type
but
of
I want to know about it now.
it's a certain type of liquor that is I believe it's 99
Oh,
proof.
the vodka, the
Yeah,
flavored vodka.
and this the
Oh,
flavored
that
vodka.
takes me back to senior year of college right there. Yeah.
So it's they get this whole bottle and they're dude, this stuff should not be legal because it doesn't taste like liquor at all. And my
actually
friends
good.
are my
Yeah.
friends are egging me on, and I'm just going, and I'm realized probably 3/4 of the bottle is gone. It's 8:30, and like I'm like I think only me and like one other guy have taken a shot from this. Like so, like 90% of it's mine, dude. 8:45 hits, and it's completely black. I wake up at 3 a.m. and I'm butt naked in the hospital. And I have no idea how I got there. And what happened was basically at this point I had blacked out. And at the time I was talking, it was a perfect setup because I know that I was meant to go on this path because things could not have been like domino affected worse. So I'm talking to this girl at the time, and it's parents weekend, so it gets even worse. It's parents weekend. And I go to the place called the pub where they're having like the parents event, and her parents there, and her father's like her father I want to say is like not a general, but relatively or a captain or something in the army, and he's there like in his full outfit. And I guess like I went up to her and like just like obviously I'm blackout, so like nothing is making sense. I'm talking like Nick Diaz on his last interview. So I'm talking, and she supposedly said I was trying to talk to her father, and then I grabbed him by the back of the neck, like pulled him into me and like whispered something, like threw him off, and then like left. And went back. So like after that happened, I went back to the dorm and I start like obviously like violently throwing up. And my friends are trying to take care of me, and then on top of that, just so happened that somebody on someone's whiteboard, like you know how the college dorms like people hang whiteboards up. Somebody had just so happened to been consistently writing the word rape on this whiteboard. So the dean of students is just so happened to be walking down this hall, and I'm dying in like the bathroom, and you can hear it. And like my friends have me in the shower, so like I'm obviously like under control, but like dude, I was obviously from what they said I was hurting. So he's like, I can't let this happen. Like this is parents' weekend, and you have this kid. Like he's basically like could potentially get alcohol poisoning and die. Like he didn't know like how much I drank, but it was not going well. So calls an ambulance, and that's how I made it to the hospital. But anyway, long story short, after that happened, like they knew of me, so like they were like the college like sent me a letter and basically had told me that I was not allowed to come back there. But what happened was I was so hell bent on getting back in there. After that happened, I reached out to different colleges, and actually got recruited the next 3 years to go to school up in Iowa called Wartburg College, where the first year I was there we won NCAA's. The second year I was there we took second, and then the third year I was there we won NCAA's again.
That's like a real like things happen for like a
Yeah.
reason kind of thing. Like when you were first telling, I was like, wait, where's this going to wrestling? And then
Yes.
it got into like
Oh, it
got
gets
you to
deep.
oh wow.
Dude, this like honestly sometimes I don't tell people like not my life story but like past events because I feel like sometimes they think I'm lying. And it's not that like I'm like, oh, this is like some like grandiose crazy life that I live, but I feel like all of these things have happened for a reason to lead me to the spot that I'm at right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Scottsdale, Arizona, at Fight Ready. Like I don't know why, but all of those events, starting with that one event, has cascaded me to meet certain people to get me to this spot. So that's why I feel it's important. But yeah, so that's what got me to the next stage of my life was that event. Because if that didn't happen, I definitely would 100% got myself back into college.
Like you had to screw up royally. To
Yeah,
get, like,
no, because like
better...
like I got kicked out of college for my grades because I just wasn't going to class like an idiot. And then after that, the year after, I got straight A's. So I was like, I just needed obviously like some motivation,
something to put you on the right path and stuff like that.
So I would have got back in, but like I was like, it worked out obviously for the better.
And you know, it's good. It's good that it's like only like it was that one time that got you on the right path. Like not to mention any names, but like John Jones.
Yeah,
he just got arrested again, and it's like how many times, you know?
Yes.
You know, like I mean, because we're about to just take a halftime, but I do want to ask you a question, like.
Sure.
Because what I've been thinking a lot after that is that, you know, when you're in the sport of MMA and all those people are like looking up to you and, you know, wanting to be like you, because like you have so many, you know, fans just saying, wow, you know, like you wish you could do a Jorge Masvidal flying knee. But if they're getting into trouble, like, do you think that puts like a really bad image on like not just the sport, but like what people should aspire to be like?
You know, I think that as athletes, especially in the spotlight, we have a responsibility to obviously, you know, do the right thing and try to set a quality example. But what I think that is complete BS is that people try to act like people don't make mistakes. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand that obviously John Jones is in a completely different situation, but still, I think it's ridiculous to think that we are not human beings and we can't make mistakes because everyone makes mistakes. But what you need to, I think what is good to do is to overcome them because then it can show other people, hey, like I can be, like you can be at a terrible point in your life, but it doesn't matter because as long as you don't give up, it's not over yet. You can still turn it around.
Kind of like when you see like Conor McGregor and what he just did. It's like it's his first time doing it.
Yeah.
Like John Jones, you see repeatedly, but Conor, it's like you got to understand he probably after taking that loss at 229, he probably hit him pretty hard because that was a pure straight up landslide defeat. Mm-hmm. And it's probably like, how are you gonna recover? So he's probably having a battle within himself, and that's when we really make our most mistakes.
Yeah, dude,
but
that's life. Yeah. It's ups and downs. If you can't deal with the downs, you're not gonna get back up. So I feel like it's just, it translates to the same thing. Like, obviously, like I was saying, good example, but you can't pretend like you're perfect because no one is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
but with that, we're going to take a halftime, and then we'll be right back. So, I don't want to say it. I mean, we've already sworn a few times, so probably busting the algorithm, but I don't want to, rub salt in the wound by saying it because from what I understand, they censor what's going on. So I'm going to call it Carl 18 as to what's going on.
Gotcha.
So when because I know you guys were trying to, really fight to keep it up. Was it at the end of March they shut it down or February?
Like the gym?
Yeah.
It was, I want to say it was the end of March, like the third week of March that we actually physically had to shut down. I believe it was on a Friday too.
Like, what was that process like learning that, you guys have to close down and like, what do you guys do to supplement it now?
It was pretty odd, honestly, because we were actually, I want to say one of the last gyms in Arizona that like held on to like stay open. I want to say we made it 1 week longer than everyone. But it was just odd because when it happened, our owner had told us that we weren't going to go and then like we had no choice. So it was weird. But as far as what we're doing to supplement it, like there's honestly really nothing you can do. What I will say though is that we have a very generous owner and boss who is at least giving us a percentage of what we would be making. So obviously, that's a very lucky, that's a blessing. So that's super cool. As far as our income, we can supplement. But as far as like getting things done, all I'm trying to do is do some privates in the park. So I got a couple people that are pretty loyal. So like my guy Frank comes I want to say 2 to 3 times a week. I got a guy, David Royen, who comes a lot. Or I'll go to some people's houses to go ahead and do that. Like, even if it costs money as far as an Uber, as long as I can make something, it's still worth my time, because with the quarantine, we're literally doing nothing all day.
Oh yeah. You catching up on like any gaming or anything like that? Or
I have just gotten an Xbox. Actually, one of my sponsors hooked me up and like gave it to me. So
you gotta send me your gamer tag after this.
yeah, I will absolutely. I'm on Xbox, but most of the time, all I've been doing really is just playing Fortnite with my little brother, who's 13 and absolutely whoops my ass at it. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah, it carries me at duos all the time. I used to be better than him at video games, but you know, as you grow older, you kind of grow away from those things a little bit.
Like for the second like part, I really want to bust out like the really fun questions.
Let's do it.
And from
I'm
someone
ready.
who is like an aspiring athlete in what could be
Sure.
like the most brutal sport out
Sure.
there, what do you think of all these kids now playing Fortnite and calling it a sport? Like thinking they need
It's
Gatorade, and
horrifying.
it's horrifying, right? Like, do you think Ninja logo should be on Monster Energy? It's like you don't need energy to sit there, do you?
No, I think
No offense, Ninja. Love your
I
stuff.
mean, I don't think it should be classified as a sport, but I think it obviously is a skill. Like it's that stuff in building, like in all those, you know, the technique and strategy. But I don't think it should be called a sport. You know what I'm saying? You're not physically doing anything. It's more of a mental thing. It's like calling chess a sport.
Yeah, it's more of like a how can you think kind of
Yeah.
thing. Like checkers, like I can't play chess to save my life.
Yeah.
But if someone wants to go checkers 1-on-1, I mean that's where the game.
Sure.
begins,
Yeah,
you
I'm
know?
down
It's
with
like-
that.
But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean I think it's just interesting, like with, you know, what our generation is classifying as a sport
Mhm.
nowadays, and how there's more people. Because the one thing I've realized, you know, because when I got into watching like UFC, I had been like, you know, 23, got out of, you know, college. I didn't see my, you know, degree taking me anywhere, so I kind of like spent a lot of time at Dave and Buster's, like doing the you know, downhill drinking and stuff
Sure.
like that at the bar. And then like I look up and I see like two guys going, and I'm like, okay, I've never, you know, watched this, and I was like just like amazed by how much like of against the status quo they were showing. Like they're showing respect and everything like
Sure.
that. They're trying to like, they're like touching gloves and then beating each other up again, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, wow, for someone who does something so brutal and so like violent, that, you know, if you were to bring it to like a huge crowd of like normal college students, they'd probably cringe at it. You know,
I would say nowadays with colleges, I would say actually it depends on like what area you're at.
mhm.
Because I had obviously gone to a different couple colleges, so like I had seen like the culture differences, where I would say probably at one college it'd be very accepted and people would love it, and then at the other college people would, like you said, would cringe at it.
It's like toxic. Or
Yeah,
something
exactly.
Like that.
So like I mean, I can't even tell you the day that Trump was elected. Like people, I
Oh, I
swear,
remember. I remember that. Day. Like, not to bring in
terrible.
politics, but
It was terrible.
well, no, I majored in theater too.
Oh.
And so when you see that many grown adults crying and hugging each other and stuff,
Yeah.
it was just like, I mean, like, this is not a popular opinion, but I was sick that night, like really sick. So my mind
Sure.
wasn't on the whole like political thing.
Right.
My mind has never really tried to be in there. The only time like is when I like go on Twitter just to watch people throw stuff at each other now.
Mhm.
But it's just like I fell asleep because I was focused on getting rid of this sore throat and this migraine and stuff.
Yeah.
And then like I woke up and then I checked the Facebook feed, like, how could this happen? You know, we're gonna live in, and then I'm like, oh wait, did Hillary win? And I was like, and then I checked the map and I'm like, holy shiznit. I was like, this is not happening. I'm sleeping, aren't I? And then I call my buddy. I'm like, am I still asleep? Is this a dream? He's like, no, this is real life. And I'm like, oh. And then I go to the thing and everyone has their heads down, but I guess I was just like not into the hysteria of it like everyone else was,
Mhm.
but it's kind of like just a wake up call to just how, you know, sensitive the colleges can get nowadays. So like when you see something like MMA, because I kind of want to get off the political part of it,
Sure.
you know, with MMA, it's like most of my, you know, friends like who I went to college with and stuff like that. Like I one day I posted a picture of me and my gi on as my Facebook profile.
Mhm.
And, you know, it wasn't anything. I just, you know, like the gi and everything like that. I kind of like no matter, even if I'm like a low level or a high level, I still like putting that on and rolling and, you know, having that kind of sportsmanship thing.
Sure.
But you get a lot of like crazy messages like, oh, so you're fighting now, and it's like, oh, it fits you and stuff like that. It's just, I think the assumption of MMA now and stuff, or like any sort of martial art, it's like, would you say it's like in danger or anything?
As far as what?
As far as like people kind of like turning from it because it's violence and it's icky and stuff like that.
No, just because I would say even though that there's always gonna be a crowd of that, I think the majority is a greater crowd that actually enjoys it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, obviously you have your WWE fans, your casuals, you know, guys like that. But then you have, you know, like actual people who understand and, like you're saying, see the respect and like the martial arts way of like the way they're doing it, and like obviously like fan for it. So I think the majority will always like allow some sort of path, unless we get completely into, you know, some horrific 20 years from now where everyone's a, you know, not gonna say any specific
things. You
but
can't. That's how
yeah.
you know, don't make it
Sure.
in the algorithm and
Yes,
stuff like that.
absolutely.
But actually, you know, because I want to keep the train of thought coherent. Because I remember I've had some talks with you in the locker room about this guy. Because speaking of Donald Trump, what do you think of Colby Covington right now?
I think after I used to actually buy into like I'm like, dude, screw this guy. He's, you know, he's an asshole. Like, who does he think he is? And then I'm like, oh, dude, he's a genius.
He did what
he's
he
a
had
genius
to do. Like,
because also being around Henry, I understand it. You know, I
Triple C,
can never say that it would be like my gig, because like I've always had like a picture of the way that I wanted to do it and like what I want to do with the MMA and like martial arts and like show. But obviously, like after seeing like the difference between Henry Cejudo and Triple C, like these are personas. You know what I'm saying?
He's not doing it because it's really who he is.
No, I mean to a degree. Because that guy is kind of a dork, but in a good way. Like he's a funny.
Oh yeah, no. Because I remember like after jiu-jitsu class, I was like waiting for like 20 minutes, like just like that is the double champ with a gold medal in the Olympics. So wait your turn to talk to him, hold off, and if he doesn't notice you, you know, too bad. Like after he's done talking, because I could tell it was important about like kids wrestling techniques, and you know he's got to take care of business first. So I want to like show respect to this guy, and I'm like just sitting there with my rash guard on, like trembling in this guy's presence because of just, you know, how well he fights. I was like, I was honestly betting on Demetrius Johnson that fight.
The second,
and then when that second one, and then when he, you know, won, I was so amazed by it. I wasn't even mad about the fact that I lost money. And then when he fought TJ, sorry, Henry, but I bet on TJ because I was,
obviously,
you know, everyone was expecting TJ to take it. And then we saw that first round and I was like, I have never been so happy to lose money at this point in my life, because that knockout was, as the Gen Zers say, fucking mint, right? It's, you know, it was amazing. But like, to get back on the subject, I was like just sitting there and he's like, hey, do you want to like take a picture or something? I'm just like, you know, I didn't know what to ask him, so I asked him the basic question, like, is it true you defeated Magic with 2 sprained ankles? And he's like, and I could tell he's already answered this question before. And he's like, yeah, 2 sprained ankles and a thrown out shoulder. And I'm like, that's even better. And then he's like, and I'm like, can you hold the camera? Because I'm like just trembling. And your friend's like, sure. And then he's like doing the cutthroat thing and everything like that, and just all that stuff. And then he gives me like the best advice I've ever like had just for the modern times. He's like, respect the internet, kid. And then goes away. And I'm like, that was amazing. And it's just like, so I'm honestly hoping he does that Dominic Cruz fight, and that's like a real thing, because that would like solidify him as like one of not only the greatest flyweight, but one of the greatest bantamweights of all time.
Yes. I think that, in my opinion, I think it's a better fight for his legacy than Jose Aldo, especially in the position that Jose Aldo's in right now. And on top of that, Jose Aldo's made his legacy and his legend at 145. So even though, yes, I understand that he's one of the greatest at 145, he's still fighting at 135. So it's a different fighter. Whereas Dominic Cruz is
kind of on his way down right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dominic. I know you signed my Infinity Gauntlet, but
I mean, yeah. But he's one of the guys that obviously like I watch to like try to understand and learn and you know, pick up things from, because he's one of the greatest.
And like, no matter how you feel about Dominic Cruz, because I know it's like, he's rivaling with Henry right now, and you can tell like it's probably just all online, you know, just to get the fight sold. But watching Dominic Cruz and like just because I was so late to the sport of UFC to watch it, so I missed the train. I got on at 223. He last fight was in 207 when he fought Cody Garbrandt.
Mm-hmm.
I was blown away by this guy's like philosophy. I was like talking about you could either be a host to God or a hostage to your own ego, and how like things like jealousy and bitterness only hold you back. So like look forward, and you know, he had such a go forward philosophy, and he was so calm with it too, and just so he was like one of the most zen people that it's like you want to see that fight, but just I feel like, but like I kind of have like a opinion though. I feel like the Aldo fight would be necessary at bantamweight. You know what I'm talking about?
Why so?
Because I honestly feel like Aldo won that fight
Against Moraes.
yeah, I was like kind of disappointed by that
Sure.
decision. And so like when I see people go on Twitter and say, you know, oh, he's picking an easy fight. He's not picking an easy fight.
Not
You know,
at all.
Aldo beat a guy that he beat. It was a decision, but
Mhm.
it kind of qualifies them for that thing because I was expecting Aldo to make a bad cut and make the same mistake TJ did.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, actually, you know what? I kind of agree with that because, like, I do think he won that fight, but at the same time, the decision is like what it is. Like, you got to kind of take it what it is because that's still a loss on his record no matter what. When you look back at it, they'll still say he still lost, like, no matter how you cut it. But yes, I do think that he should have got that decision. I don't understand what half of these judges are seeing. Sometimes I'm like, all right, like you guys nailed it, and sometimes I'm like, what were you even watching, honestly? But that's why you have to finish people, honestly, nowadays. So
And I don't know if like already answered this because we've had like a lot of talk time,
sure.
but who would you say, like besides Henry or Valentine, because I know you train with those guys, like
Mhm.
who would you say is your favorite fighter to watch?
That's a good question. I feel like I should have came prepared for this one, but man, I can't pick one, but I want to say honestly to watch and try to learn from. I'm sorry, Henry, but it's Demetrius Johnson because he's just everything that he does is so calculated and so crisp and clean that like
If he were to be the same size as John Jones, like do you think he'd win that fight?
he would win. Yeah, he would smoke. Well, yeah, he would smoke him because his speed is absolutely unreal. But like at 205, that
Well,
couldn't be possible.
What I mean, because my favorite fighter was on the same card where Demetrius Johnson against Ray Borg.
Mhm.
That flying armbar was amazing. I was like when I watched that, like the playback, my jaw just dropped.
Yes.
So you could see when Henry beat him, you know, it was a big deal. But
Yes.
you got to see the choice that Demetrius made though, like when he moved to one,
Mhm.
which honestly, you know what I think would be a really cool idea if like Henry also like just took like one fight at one and just to see where it goes, and then have like that trilogy fight somewhere down the road when his
Sure.
UFC career kind of like, you know, even if he still has the belt at that point, because that's like the thing is Father Time's an unbeaten record.
Right.
So it's like if it's on the table a few years from now, that trilogy fight would be like a seller, and I think would actually get a lot of attention to one and you know other places too, because I
Yeah.
feel like one is like very underappreciated.
Yeah, actually, I've always wanted when I think about like my goals in MMA, like I've listed like want to be world champion in like UFC, Bellator, and one. Like throughout my career, I would like to get all three of those. So obviously, one is like one that I respect very very highly. I think
Mhm.
Rizen's a very cool one, but
Yeah, I mean, but also like UFC tends to go for like who's most marketable too.
yeah, I think
Like
they
in-
all do or like represent different periods or portions of like an MMA career.
Oh
that
yeah,
you should go through. I would like to actually start in one,
one.
to be honest, and then go to the UFC, and then obviously
I honestly,
when you're
like,
on the
I
way
honestly
out,
think
hit
like
Bellator up.
I think one might actually have like the deadliest guys too, like the best fighters too. Like not to crap all over the UFC or anything like that, because I have respect for like all three organizations. I just feel like if they were to do like a mix up or something, because like if you look at Ben Askren, like before he just kind of had his decline,
Mhm.
like when he was dominating that, like that was, you could see that like he meant business when he went in there.
Mhm.
I think he kind of like age just caught up to him right when he did the UFC thing, and then I think that Jorge Masvidal fight, kind of probably put a damper on things. And if you're on the wrong end of something like that, I mean, that's
it's
got to
tough.
be. Have you ever because I do have one more question
Sure.
before anything before we go to the training and everything.
Mhm.
But what is the worst loss you've ever taken inside the octagon, if you've taken one?
Oh yeah, 100% has to be the EAFL National Championship that was out in Chicago. So obviously, I just moved here from Chicago. I spent most of my growing up, my middle school and my high school years, and my last 2 years to finish my college, in Chicago. So I had a very big crowd. It was up a weight class at 135, and I was fighting a guy named Javier Coronado, who was 7-0 at the time, and he had like I want to say 6 finishes. So he's tough, but like, and at the time I was 4-0, but I wanted it. You know what I'm saying? On top of that, it's for a national championship. Like this dude, I want to be the one to give him that one. So I go and he's an animal. He's 2-0 as a pro already right now. That was his last amateur fight. And I went in there and I completely dominated round 1 and 2. Took him down, I want to say 3 or 4 times, and controlled him relatively good. But when he did crack me, I want to say a couple times, maybe in the first or second round. And I was like, wow, this guy has hard punches, dude. Like, it was punches to the point that when it hit me, I honestly like blacked out for a split second, like didn't drop it, like just like flashed me. I was like, wow, dude. Like, I've never been hit like that. Like, probably hands down the hardest guy that I ever hit. Cause dude, when we weighed in, he looked the same size as me. I had only cut like 4 or 5 pounds for it. Like, walking into the cage, I weighed myself before my like shakeout, right before going in, and I weighed $140. So I'm not weighing that heavy for 135. And this dude comes in, I swear, had to be at least 160. I was like, huh, you rehydrate well. But anyway, so it's the third round, and dude, my parents are there. I got like my 3 little brothers. I got a whole crowd from like the last 2 years of my college. Probably like I want to say close to 100 people there for me. And like I'm going into the third round, and I'm like, I remember right before I get off the stool thinking like, dude, you just gotta take him down one time, and I'll be able to control him, because I remember at the end of the second he was completely gassed. Like I had just like blast doubled him and took him down like going into the third. So I was like, I got this, just one takedown. And I get close, and the second I get close, like he throws, I want to say a right hand feint. So I come in to go to my takedown to time it, and he like pulls back and hits like the hardest to I've ever been hit with, and I completely like buckled. But like the second my knees hit the ground, I came back up, and I was like, holy, like dude, it was like way harder than the first 2 or second rounds. So I'm like trying to move, and he clips me again with a left hook. And like my knees buckle again, and on the way down, I grab his leg, and I go to start to wrestle him, and they stopped it right away. So I'm not gonna lie, like I wasn't obviously out, but it's amateur, so they stop it kind of earlier than they would professional. But dude, it was just such a heartbreaker, because dude, I was like, there was number one, there was a national title on the line, like at a weight class that was higher, that if I had won, like obviously would have blown up my career, because it was on NBC Chicago. So they aired that shit on NBC Chicago, so that was kind of tough. Number 2, I had like a whole group and a whole crowd, like my family, my little brother. Like I walked up into the crowd, and my little brother was crying, and I because like he's like a phenomenal wrestler now, and like the reason he started wrestling is because he like looks up to me, and it was hard because I was like
kind of like Max Holloway and his son, pretty
Yeah.
much. It's like you're like that superhero figure
Right.
to him, and it's just like, I know it's a hard hit,
dude, yeah, it was tough, because I was like, dude, I had him, and yeah, but and I remember honestly like that night when I was showering, and I was like cleaning my face because I was all cut up. I remember like breaking down in like the shower, and I remember just like talking to God and like asking him like, please, like if you like help me like throughout this like journey, like I'll do anything, like please. Like I could never go through like experience like that again. So that was probably hands down the toughest loss I ever had. But I feel like I needed it, because it made me recommit 10,000 times harder. And every time I always think about that in the back of my mind when things get hard. I'm like, dude, like I could never see my little brother cry like that again. So
you got to keep those losses matter more than the wins.
way more. And on top of that, it's amateur career. You know what I'm saying?
It's your
Like,
time
I would love to
lose.
be undefeated like John Jones for the entire career, but like at the same time, when I go pro, I'm still gonna have that O. And even if I do hypothetically lose, which I don't see when I go pro, it's like all that matters is I get those belts and those goals one day. Because yeah, people will see those losses, but it's the pinnacle of what you reach. It's not, you're gonna have peaks and valleys. But as long as you reach that pinnacle, dude, that's all I want to do. World champion. 3 different organizations.
It's done. All right. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's get to training, right?
Hell yeah.
All right. Stay healthy, guys. We are here for COVID training in Ramon's backyard. You remember him from season 1? I got a haircut to get the prison yard feel. We're ready to go.
Sponsor violation. Head rep. Head charge striking.